Hey everyone, and welcome to this webinar number 7 in the series on teaching mathematics and science in Brightspace. First thing I'd like you to do is log into Brightspace if you haven't already. So you can head to gecdsb.elearningontario.ca, and I'd like you to go into the D2L with Dave course, because there's going to be some things throughout the day where if you want to try them out or look at them when I refer to them, it'll be quicker to get you in now to do that. One thing I'd like to point out before we start is we are using Brightspace's built-in video conferencing tool. So this is a tool that's used and vetted by the ministry. It is private and secure if you're using it within your classrooms, and it is the ministry provided one. So if you're wondering what Bongo is just a provider that provides this service to Brightspace or D2L to use. And that's what we're using right now. So if you're interested in using the virtual classroom, this is the virtual classroom experience that you'd get within Brightspace. Okay, so welcome again. We're hoping to get a lot out of today's sessions for math and science teachers. I know we've got a wealth of knowledge in the virtual room right now, so I hope that that we can get some good conversation going. If you're not sure of who I am, again, my name is Dave Gomes. I've been putting on these webinars for a while now. I'm our technology-enabled learning and teaching contact with the board, and I work with our student success department for a great team there. I'm our liaison with the Ministry of Ed for e-learning and with D2L. And I'm co-hosted with by Paul Lonke today. He is the special assignment literacy teacher for a few of the schools. He's also the English department head at Essex District, or was the English department head at Essex District High School, and he's been one of my e-learning teachers for 3 years now. So he's bringing a wealth of knowledge to teaching and learning in the online environment. Paul, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And Paul's just been super integral in helping me plan out my my thoughts and bringing his expertise to all of this for teaching and learning in the virtual space. So thank you for being here. Today we're going to be a little bit more Q&A and demo based. So we're hoping to answer all of your questions to best support you. So to start that off, we have one question, and that is, what do you do in your regular classroom that you would like to replicate online? And so I'd like you to just use the chat pod on the side. Think for a minute or so. Type in, what types of things do you do in your regular classroom that you would like to learn to replicate online? Imagining that we may be in a hybrid or a fully online school year in September. What types of things? Okay, so problem-based lessons, labs, number talks, 3-act tasks, labs and demos, discussions with manipulations of hexagons to connect concepts. Scott, you're going to have to give me a little bit more detail on that. Manipulation of hexagons. Doc and talk. Good notes. Okay. Okay. So that's a synchronous learning. Okay. So it's a pretty good list of things. I think we're going to cover some of them today, and others, if we have time at the end, we'll hope to get a little bit more detail on them so we can provide some more details. So okay, so Scott's, we use hexagons, the concept printed on them, and okay, so that might be something we can look into. That's interesting. Very interesting.
That could be a kind of a Padlet sort of thing. We can look into that.
Yeah. And Scott, I'm assuming this is one of the things you were hoping to do in H5P? Yeah, that sounds like one of those interactive pieces. Okay, well, I'm hoping we can get to a lot of those different things. I'm not going to say we can get to every single one of them based on our timing, but I'll do our best to kind of demo some things, and if we're going down the right path, we'll continue with the conversation. If not, then I guess we can, change course. Okay, so just so you know, if you haven't looked at our previous sessions, the first 4 sessions were on an overview, creating content and editing the ministry content, communicating inside Brightspace, and then assessment. So if you want to refer to any of those, they're in that link inside of Edsby. There's a pinned message in the all staff group that you can get to those, or just bit.ly/D2L with Dave 1, 2A, 2B, 3, 4, and the recordings all go out, provided no one steals my bit.ly links. So question number 2, I'm going to demonstrate just one of the things you can use inside a virtual classroom. It's this multi-user mode. Right now you can see where my cursor is on the screen. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to use your cursor to answer this question. So it's not going to show up in the recording, so don't worry, but your name will show up. And how would you solve this following quadratic equation? Would you factor it? Would you use the quadratic formula? Would you complete the square? Or would you use trial and error? What would you do? Okay, nice. We got a few people everywhere. I'm just being the odd man out saying factoring. I'm not sure if it factors, but I'm pretty sure it does. But okay, nice. So again, this is just one way that you could use one of the tools inside here. It's called multi-user mode inside of the virtual classroom. So thank you for that. I'm taking your voice away now. And this should say question number 3, but for the science people, what is your favorite strand of science? Are you a chemistry, a biology person, physics and electricity person, or a space person? Maybe call it a space cadet. A lot of bio people in here. I will not say what I usually say because I'm a physics teacher. But okay, awesome. So thank you for that. So we got a lot of bio people, some chemists, a couple spaceys, and well, the loneliest people in physics. It's kind of sad. So, well, thank you for your input. I certainly appreciate that.
This is a nice little feature for the people who are asking about synchronous learning. So that's a pretty convenient way. These are just PowerPoint slides, so you can design whatever you want, and just a way of getting the class talking. They can also be contributing through the chat as well at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things that Paul and I were talking about, we've been using images for these, but you could just have, like we said, like we did in the previous one, you could just have something like the text boxes here, or almost like a 4 corners, A, B, C, D. You could also use the poll feature. So I can initiate a poll, and let's say chemistry is A, biology is B, physics is C, and earth space science is D. You can actually click above with the polling options, and I can initiate a poll on the spot if I want to. So you can see above the screen, you see A, B, C, and D. And once people have put in those poll results, I can close it and publish it. So there's a tie between biology and physics right now, but I mean, the sample size is much too small. So we're not going to count that as being scientifically significant. Okay, so a couple things that I think Paul and I are just going to want to demonstrate inside here. Firstly, would be something that we do in math and physics, or math and science, all the time, and it's thinking aloud, either when you're solving a problem or when you're looking at a diagram, but having the ability to annotate as well. So when you're doing a think aloud, you're modeling a skill as an expert, you're making the thought process explicit. So you can use your face, you can use your voice, and you can use annotation, and that's all going to increase engagement. Right now, you're just looking at the screen, but if I were to turn my camera on, you can also look at my face, which I apologize for this. This
for your face?
Yeah, exactly. This is what happens when you have 3 young kids under 5. So, so you can actually see what I'm doing and what I'm looking at. And this can be either synchronous or asynchronous. So you could be doing this in the virtual classroom like we're doing right now, or you could be doing this asynchronously, record the session and post it on your class site. So I'm going to go to this next question. And all I've done is I've put in a text box in my PowerPoint slide that's just giving a question here. It's a physics question. So when it says a physics teacher, or sorry, a physics student throws a physics textbook horizontally from the top of a 10-meter tall school, how long does it take the textbook to hit the ground? And so what I might do inside here is, if I'm going through this problem with a class, I might be looking at using some of these tools. So for example, like the pencil tool inside here, and I can annotate, and I know that's not the greatest. I should probably just use my stylus, but but I can kind of highlight some important information. So it's a 10-meter tall building. It's horizontally, and then how long, right? So these are important pieces. But I think one of the more important pieces inside here as a physics teacher would be drawing my diagram, because I'm a big diagram guy. So we've got some tools inside here that I can use to, create a line. I can create my building here, and I'm actually going to turn on multi-user mode here, because you have the ability as students in this class or in this video to help me with my diagram. So on the right-hand side, you should be able to see some tools that you can go grab with the pencil. And if you want to help me with this diagram, feel free to help me. If someone wants to draw a physics student on top of the building up here, or maybe drawing the textbook as it would fly, it doesn't get thrown that way. So that was a horrible drawing by me. But yeah, if you can help me draw this, that would be great. And what I would be thinking is, okay, I need to have my diagram. I need to show the direction that this physics textbook is being thrown. Maybe I need to have an axis that demonstrates what my positive and negative directions are going to be. And maybe I can label this diagram too, right? So how tall is this, right? And you get the idea here. But what we could do is, as a class, we could either be doing this, or just me, I could be doing this. So I could be looking and saying, okay, this is how I would be drawing my diagram. It's horizontal. There's going to be an impact at here, and we're looking for our change in time, right? Now, this is just a simple physics problem. You could probably do this in math as well. I'm going to turn off my camera, though, so you don't have to see me anymore. It's just one idea that you could use in terms of solving problems. So you do have the annotation feature. You can have students annotating on the same document as you, which is great. And anytime I want, I can clear the annotations, if I'd like to. I'm going to leave them on here, but you have that ability inside. So whether that's you have a diagram already that you want to be explaining something to, or you have you have a text that you're looking at with maybe it's something like describing some functions in the body. You could be highlighting some keywords, or even asking students to highlight some keywords that they don't understand. And then you can go through kind of helping students understand what it is they don't understand, or go through and solve the problem from start to finish. But I like the idea
that a number of people, Dave, asking about number talks and demos and chalk and talk. And I think that this is one way you could do that effectively. Yeah.
So I think for specifically with chalk and talk, this would be the idea. And all I've done for this, like Paul was saying earlier, is I made a PowerPoint presentation and I left the screen blank. So you've got the open whiteboard that you can use and create inside here. So you can do that right in here. Now I know there was a lot of questions about labs and the ability to do labs. So the one issue with labs is going to be the fact that we don't have our kids or our students in front of us. But what I want to do, I just want to jump to, where is it? I'm going to jump to slide 16, because part of what I want to talk about is embedding interactive content. To answer Abby's question, can you use animations in the PowerPoint? You can't inside of this. It actually just turns them all into different, I think it's SVG files. So there's no, you can't do that. But what you could do if you wanted, instead of me loading in a presentation, sorry about that, I could share my screen. And so if I share my screen, I'm going to actually share the desktop version of my PowerPoint. So you can see that I'm on my desktop version now instead of loading it in through Virtual Classroom. And then if I had this in presentation mode, I could have all of my transitions and things going on like that. Okay. But what I'd like to share is just the idea of things that you can embed to make it a little bit more interactive. Give me 1 second. So a couple things. When you think of embedding interactive content, the reason why I'm going to this one is that if you're a science teacher or a math teacher and you've used PhET before, PhET is a great resource that you can use in order to pull in these HTML5 simulations and have them available inside your content. Now, previously, we've been able to use gizmos, and gizmos or Explore Learning, our license for that is expiring based on the ministry not funding it anymore. So it's expiring in December 2020. So we will not have access past December 30th. So we need to start thinking about what we could use for those. So you could be also using these interactive games. So for example, if you're creating things on Quizlet or H5P, you can embed those directly into the content inside your course, or you could use quizzes and Kahoots and have them assigned as homework, things like that. Another thing you could do that Paul mentioned earlier is using Padlet for collaborative working spaces for different purposes, right? So if you can embed Padlet directly into your content as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I just want to show you where you can embed these types of things, and I'll show you with the example of PhET, just so that you can see it in action. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. And let me know if you can see what I'm seeing. I think you should be able to. So yeah, we're here. And I'm just going to do a quick Google search for PhET. It's the first one, phetcolorado.edu. And what you can do is go to this simulations, and you'll notice there's all these different simulations available for physics, bio, chem, math. You can go by grade level. I like selecting these ones, the HTML5 ones at the top. And the reason for that is these used to all be done in Flash, but since Flash is no longer going to be supported with any browsers, you got to use the HTML5 ones. So as you can see here, there's a bunch of HTML5 simulations you can use, both in math. They're just done by alphabetical order right now. But if you're looking at area multiplication, or if you're looking to do some balloon and static electricity, this is something you're able to basically click into. And you can see you can play this right inside here, but I don't like that, because the idea here was I don't want my students going out to go somewhere and do something. So if I just provide them a link to here, yeah, it absolutely would work. But you see right below this, you have this option for the embed button. If you click the embed, it's going to give you this crazy looking thing if you're not used to coding. And all you have to do is copy that. So I can just go Control-C or right click on it and go copy, right? And now when I go back into my online class, I'm just going to open up that appropriate one. Of course, not going to type in nicely. So when I go back into this D2L with Dave teacher course, I can do this in the content, or I can do it anywhere where I have that rich text editor. So I'm going to go into content because that's where I think it would probably be most used. When I open up the content, I'm going to create a new unit just to show embedded. Save that. Okay, and then now I'm going to create a new HTML document. Right, and we'll call it PhET. And inside this, I can use the insert stuff icon, which is right here. And go down and select enter embed code right under insert link. So it's just like inserting a link. You're going to paste in that embed code. You're going to select next and insert. We are going to allow from there and click insert and then save. And then what we should see is that when we select this HTML page, that interactive this interactive element is going to show up nicely. So I can just do whatever I'd like to do inside and do the learning that needs to happen. I can also view this in full screen, so I'm not just limited to this little window. So if I select this right here, it loads up right inside of full screen for me. Okay, so that'll work for any type of embedded code that you need to use. So some of them could be used from PhET. Some of them could be used from other things like Quizlet. So if you're not sure of what Quizlet is basically some they're basically like flashcards, but you can turn them into games and embed them from there. You could also use quizzes or where am I going here? I'm gonna stop sharing. So you could also use the quizzes or Kahoots and assign them as homework, and you could host it live if you're sharing your screen, if that's what you'd want to use. Okay, so unfortunately, Brightspace doesn't necessarily have labs built into it because Brightspace is just the place where you can author content, but you can't really create things from scratch in terms of like interactive code unless you know how to do that stuff, and I do not. So, but there are some things you can use. So I know some people have looked into H5P in the past. I think H5P is now monetizing, so you can't really create as much things inside there as you used to be able to, but it's still a decent resource if you're looking to create some stuff. Okay, so that's how we could handle labs. I mean, another thing you could do, and this is something that I've been talking about with some other science teachers, is it's all going to depend on what we have in September. So if we're looking for students to be able to experience the lab and then reflect on it, and we as teachers are allowed to go into the building, then we could actually have a lab. We could set up a lab, do the recording of it, and then allow students to process, reflect on it, and do a lab report. But I mean, that's not why we get into science, right? We want students hands-on, and so that's the difficulty. So I mean, a lot of this is going to be based on the provincial recommendation of what we're allowed to do, but there are certainly some things you can do in terms of getting the content a little bit more interactive with labs. Okay, and there's also usually a bunch of YouTube videos you could grab and throw in for those. Okay, Paul, are there any questions or things that?
Sure. I could talk for a minute if you like about discussions and some of the different ways we can handle that in Math and Science Online.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me find the screen for that. Can't remember which one it was. But yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to set myself to can you set me to a presenter or moderator, please?
You are now the presenter.
Well, thank you, sir. Okay. Now I will set myself to be. Interesting. It's still not giving me the presenter options here. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Dave. I don't know why I'm not able to take over as presenter here. But anyways, I can just talk about in group work, math and science. There are lots of different kinds of discussions that you're going to want to be having in class. There's the traditional full class discussion, but I'm imagining that in math and science, you also want to have a lot of one-on-one partner discussions, whether it's student and student or teacher and student, as well as small group discussions. So there are a number of different ways that could be handled. If you wanted to have partners discussing things, the basic simple way would be to use instant messaging. Oh, here I am. I have presenter mode now. This is great. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen quickly here. And let's see, there we are. Okay, so if I'm in my course and I want to have students discussing, the first thing that they can do is just go up to the messaging icon up here, and they can use instant messages, and they can just, if they know who their partner is, they can just put in their partner's name and then do a chat back and forth with all of those students. So that's a very simple way that would be intuitive for the students to chat with each other. The way that you could do it that's has a little bit more functionality to it would be to go into discussions, and then you could have discussion groups set up with each of the partners, and they could go into the discussion room and then talk back and forth with each other. So what you'd have to do is set up discussion groups that would be partners. So that would be discussion groups of 2. Of course, you could do discussion groups of any size. So if I wanted to do that, I would start in course home, and then I'd go to course admin, And then under learner management, I've got groups. And since this course doesn't have any groups yet, I'll just set up a new category. And this one, maybe I would call it lab partners. And I can give a description right there. And then down here, which is pretty helpful, I can choose the number of groups that I want to have if that's how I want to organize them, or I can have groups of a particular number. So in this case, that's what I would do because I want groups of 2 so that I can have partners. And then I can auto enroll these users, or I can hand pick the partners in the groups. I can have the students choose their own groups and then I program them in. So lots of options about how you do that. And then when I'm all done there, I would save that. And then when I create a discussion and I assign it to the class, I would just have it be a group discussion. And then I would choose under the category, I would choose lab partners as the groups. And then they would have a spot that they can go in discussions and talk to each other back and forth and do the planning that they need to do. You could do the same thing with larger groups, and you can choose the number and you can handpick what you have there. So that process could be repeated through that. And then if you wanted to get into a full class, again, you can do the full class discussions. And for those of us who have taken AQs online, we know about the discussions that say, answer this question or respond to this text, and then make a post and then respond to 2 others. And we all know the strengths and weaknesses of that kind of discussion, but that's something that could be done with the full class if that's fits with your objectives for the time. The other thing that could be done if you want to get into a full class discussion is using virtual classroom. So from the menu there, you go down here and go to virtual classroom, and you can set up a meeting just as we did for today's meeting. And then you can have students either making presentations or discussing with the entire class. Okay. When we're in discussions, of course, there are a number of different ways that the students can interact with each other. So if we look at this discussion here, let's see. We would need a new topic. And then forum. Okay. So now that I have a topic here, the students can enter this discussion. And to begin, they would start a new thread and they enter what their topic is of their discussion. And then they can post down here. They can link within the course. They can add photos. And this is the insert stuff button that gives them lots of opportunity of ways that they can interact with their peers. So it's not just typing text into the field and getting it back in the instant message. They have lots of different options of links. And the big one that really helps with the discussions is the video note here. So there we go. Once they do that, they get the image comes up and they can talk and say new recording, record it and stop. And they just keep clicking next. And then that's a pretty simple way of adding a quick video note to the partner. So if the discussion is more helpful for the students to be talking verbally to each other rather than typing their responses, that's one way that it can be done. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to say about discussions. Was there anything else that I missed in that, Dave? I guess not. Okay. Oh, Dave was booing.
I was muted.
Responded to.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, the one thing I would add to it is there's a great feature inside, and I can't remember if you mentioned it or not, but the ability to make students post before they respond. Before they can read the posts of others. So if you're having a discussion, a whole class discussion, and you want students to write their own post before they can see everyone else's to avoid cheating and things like that, or we shouldn't say cheating, but maybe to encourage original ideas. There's this option that Paul's showing right here where it's users must post before they can see the others, right? I can't see exactly what that says, but
users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads in each topic. And you can do that by forum or by topic.
Yeah, perfect. So just the idea there that, like, I'm sure everyone's taken AQ courses before, and if you're not the first person to post, it very quickly seems like everyone's just copying each other. But that also kind of goes back to answering the right type of questions, right? So if there's only one right answer and we're asking everyone to discuss it, then, you know, that's probably not the greatest discussion question. Other types of questions might be like, you know, open-ended, you know, asking 5 or 6 different, you know, complexities to the question, and then allowing students to go at it. So yeah, I think we covered everything in discussions. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? We've got a couple other suggestions that you could use specifically in math and science. But if there's any questions, just please remember you can always hop on the mic or put them into the chat. Paul, I'm going to steal back presenter.
Yep, you got it.
Oh, you gave it to me. Okay. And so what I want to share is this idea. We worked on some of this with math teachers last year. Not this past year, but last year. And there were some things that were keeping us from doing that this year. But last year we ran some PD for math teachers around creating digital breakouts or digital escape rooms. And so I just wanted to say that this is something that you could do to increase some engagement. I was actually talking to a history teacher on Friday who was using it with her grade 10 history class. She created a breakout on one of the world wars. And what she was saying is that she actually had her class in a virtual classroom session, and she was almost like that person in the room watching them do the breakout. So she could be there to answer questions. So they were actually doing this breakout synchronously in virtual classroom. But she also said that for students that couldn't make it, she assigned it to them as an asynchronous model as well. So I want to show you a couple things. So if you go to either of these, the first one is just a collection of a bunch of breakout rooms that kind of gave me the idea for how to start creating them when we were looking at them last year. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you what that looks like. If you go to bit.ly/escapemathpd, and I'm having trouble with my screens here. And so if you go to that link, it'll bring you to a bunch of what I'll say are kid-friendly ones. And they're classic breakout rooms. So they're all kind of in the same style. We'll just go quickly into, you know, this difficulty number 2. And if I open this thing up here, it basically operates in Google. So you create a Google site, and then you have a bunch of clues inside this Google site, and this Google form actually becomes the locks of your site or of that. So you see it's got like a 4-digit number lock, 8-letter word lock, 6-direction lock, and somehow these things are you know, they're clues. So if you look inside here, there's actually some directions. So you can see as you know that there's a new fence up, and so you can kind of go through and solve these things. I'll just help you with this one. When I hover over some of these, like the pool, I can see, oh, there must be a link there. When I click on the 1, it says what? Okay, if I click on 2, it says is. So it actually says something like, what is the chemical put in pools? And I think the answer is chlorine. And when I put that in, it doesn't tell me that I'm wrong. But if I put in a wrong answer, it tells me, it's still locked. Okay. So the idea here is that you could actually create a subject-specific digital breakout. And this is where I got the idea from. In terms of creating our own, was from all of these. I played through, I can't tell you how many of them, just to get the ideas for these. There's actually some that are about measurement for middle and high school. But I'm going to open up the other one, which is one that we created specifically for the math PD. And they take a little bit of time to create. But you can create them, and this is one that we created specifically for grade 9 math. And you just go through, starting with the codes, and all these different things are they're clues, right? So if I go here, can you escape in time? And it gives us some questions that we can use once these load up, right? So some questions, you'd have to get the right answer, check and see if we get the right answer. Oh, okay. So I'd actually need to do the work inside here and then move on to the next one. And that would help us get those codes. Okay. So I'm not going to go through how to create one, but I will show you that you can create them. And if I go into that course, so the D2L with Dave teacher course, there's a digital breakout planning folder that you can see here. And I've embedded in the playlist. There's 11 videos to this playlist where I go through how to create that digital breakout room. So it's creating your Google site, creating the Google form, embedding the form on the site, starting your clues. And so they're all just simple how-tos on how to create those breakout rooms. So if you're interested in that at all, you can always access that right from this digital breakout planning inside the content of this course. Or if it's something that you want to email me about, I can send you the link to that. But just getting some ideas for how to engage students in the science classroom or the math classroom, that can be one exciting way of doing that. So if you want, you can also visit those, get some ideas, and if it's something you want to either collaborate with other teachers on to create, you can do that. Or if you want my help in helping you set some stuff up for your class, you can also do that too. Okay. So that's some stuff on digital escape rooms. So I think someone was talking about number talks, right?
Yes.
Now I haven't been to Mathpedia in a while. Can someone hop on the mic and explain to me what is meant by a number talk?
From what I understand from my wife doing this in grade school, it's getting to know a number. So maybe a high school teacher should talk to it because I only know it from grade school.
I don't see anyone else having a mic on.
Okay.
Does anyone want to type in the chat? I
think it would be similar to a chalk and talk type situation where students are getting to know a particular number. In grade school, they talk about friendly numbers. So a 7 would have a friendly number of 3, which you could add together to make a 10. It might be in high school looking at the factors, or whether it's a prime number. So getting to know different numbers.
Okay.
But I'm not a math teacher, so I would need some more direction.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, I could speak to it if you want for a second.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
So basically, in the high school setting, we could do it in a few different ways. I know a lot of teachers might do something like which one doesn't belong. It could be a graph. It could be an equation, a picture. There's a version where you use number strings. So each question is kind of related to each other and the strategies build on one another. So I guess it is kind of similar to like a chalk and talk, but there's a point to it, I guess. And there's a few different ways you can go about doing it.
So would you say that like kind of what we used for this question number 2, where everyone was using the multi-user mode, like would that be something that you could use as part of the number talk?
Yeah, the multi-user mode would be awesome for that. I think it definitely would be a big part of it. And then from there, a student could probably turn their mic on and explain their thinking. The explaining the thinking piece by students is a big part of it as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that. That gives a lot more context. So yeah, with that, I think there could be multiple ways of doing that. If you're looking to do it live, then virtual classroom would be your way. But another way you could do that is through you could do it either through Portfolio, where students could record their own responses to that, or you could do it like number talks in as discussions, like Paul was even saying earlier, as a whole class discussion. One other thing I wanted to say, and it just hit me now, Paul, is using discussions as a way just to communicate with one student one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right. So So sorry to change gears, everyone, but going back to discussions, when Paul was showing how to create the groups, you can actually create groups of one and then auto-enroll all the students. And then you actually have a devoted discussion thread between you and every single student. So that could be a great way to promote something like that, especially if, let's say, Mark, I'm not sure if number talks go whole class or if sometimes you would want them to go individually with a student. That would be a safe space to do that if you're looking for an individual conversation back and forth with having video note and things like that too.
Cool.
So I think we're hitting the end of our time here. So I just want to make sure I want to go through the chat again and just see if there's any questions that we can still answer, or if there's any questions that you have that you want to throw into the chat.
Dave, there was one earlier that I thought I could address a little bit more. Someone talked about problem-based lessons.
Sure. Yeah.
We could talk about that for a second. If you could make me a presenter, please.
You're a presenter.
There we are. I'm a presenter. Okay, so problem-based lessons, presenting the students with a problem and then letting them struggle through it, have that productive struggle, and then find the strategies on their own is a useful teaching technique. So one way that this could be done in Desire to Learn would be to present a question, and that could be done at the beginning of your lesson. And if you're having a synchronous lesson, you could be in a virtual classroom where you've set up a meeting, and maybe you're going to introduce your topic and the problem that you want students to be discussing, solving, or you could do that with an announcement post or something from the content to kind of present the question. And then what I might do is have groups and partners. So if I've got partner groups set up, I can just have students jump into their go-to discussions and then jump into their partner discussion that they have. And then they can wrestle with the problem, discuss back and forth through writing and through video. And then maybe the class meets back in 10 minutes back in the virtual classroom, and then they can discuss, what solutions they found to that. So that's just one way that it could be done to do problem-based learning online. All right. Were there any other topics?
So I saw Mark was asking about any good ways of using KnowledgeHook. And so, Mark, I'm going to ask you a question quick. Do you know from KnowledgeHook if they are LTI or ready for integration?
I don't know offhand, but I could email the contact and find out.
Okay, so if you can find out, and maybe I'll email you what you'd need to ask them. But one thing you can do, Paul, I'm just going to steal back presenter privileges and share my screen over here. One thing you can do is any of these links that we have up in the nav bar here are very easy to change and remove, right? So right now I have Edsby and I have Gizmos as links inside here. And this is just our standard, our standard nav bar, but we can go in and create anything that we want and add to this. So for example, if you were going to be using KnowledgeHook a lot, then I can go into this nav bar and I can add links in. Do you, is it just knowledgehook.com?
Probably join, well, for the students, it would be joinkh.com that they would go to.
Okay, so I can just go create that, we'll call it KnowledgeHook. And is, Kyle, do you happen to know if it's LTI?
I don't, I'm in my mind wondering what the benefit would be, like in my head, of them doing that. I don't think they have any integration set up. I think that you can, for example, log in with, I think, Google, but I don't think Office 365, but I think that's as far as it goes with like integration.
Okay. So the whole reason why I'm showing this is that what we can do is we can create a custom link and change the icon inside here so that if students were in the course and they wanted to jump into KnowledgeHook to do a mission or something like that, then it would be a quicker and easier way than having to go somewhere else. You could almost use this as like the launch point, right? I don't know that I put in everything correctly, but yeah, there we go. So if this login could be bypassed, then that might be easier, but not truly as an integration, but more as like just a pass through, similar to how we do what's it called, My Blueprint. So on the board's homepage, if students log into Brightspace, then they can access, once it loads up, My Blueprint, and it just logs them right in, just so that they don't have to remember where to go to access everything. So, but that's how I would, I mean, using KnowledgeHook online, I would kind of defer that to you, Mark, and Kyle. I know you guys have been doing awesome work on Fridays with the math teachers. So what would your recommendations be for using KnowledgeHook in the online or virtual space if we are online next year?
I think, there's a few different ways you could definitely go. I mean, there's the opportunity for missions, which are sort of self-led by students. But then even as the teacher, you could run, for example, a game show where you could be in a webinar like this or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is that you're using if you're doing any synchronous learning, and kind of leading them through a bit of an experience, right? So you can create a custom activity, for example, and lead a problem-based lesson through there, but still have this opportunity to be chatting with students instead of it being sort of a teacher-paced game show, but you're not able to interact with the students. There's no chat in there. There's no video or audio. So this platform, I feel like would be really great. You just have two tabs open, right? Students would flip to one tab, and you could call them back to this tab to have them share in the chat, and you can kind of see what's going on in live time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I know I think Fuada just jumped on and then jumped off, but okay. Well, I think so. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Mark. Mark, I'll email you that info. If there's, does anyone have any other questions?
There was a quick question. Jamie wanted to know about the multi-user. The students' names appear there. Is there a way to hide those students' names?
They appear, no. So not in multi-user mode. So you can't hide them. So I mean, you could have, and that's one thing that I was kind of thinking too. They are not shared in the recording. So because we're recording this, you won't see any of those being done. But in the same way in a classroom, I would think, what is students are going to be singled out in certain ways. So we always want to build in that option of prefer not to answer or not sure yet or something like that. So, and that's okay, right? I think, but in the ones that we demoed, we didn't really have those in there. It was just, what's your favorite? So just think about when you're doing that, wanting to be non-threatening and have it to be low stakes. But yeah, there's no way to hide the names in there from other students. And so Fuad, I was just mentioning inside here, I mentioned it earlier that the question came up about labs, and Gizmos or Explore Learning is expiring on December 30th. And Neil was saying we re-register every year. This year is slightly different. Usually OSAPAC, which is the Ontario Software Acquisition Procurement Advisory Committee, I think I got that right. They usually get the licensing, but they're suspending their licensing for everything. The ministry is no longer funding that, so we will not be getting Gizmos or any of those software licenses back unless we can find somewhere in the board's budget to do that. So I know we're going to be having some ongoing conversations moving forward about that. So I was just kind of wondering, Fuada, if you have any other options at this point. Looking into another option. Yeah. And yeah, it's not about the expiring. It's literally OSAPAC is just not a thing anymore. They're not, the provincial government's taken away all the funding, so they're not licensing for whole boards. Okay. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything that we've covered today, or if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Paul and myself. I'm still sharing my screen. Let me get out of there and get to that last slide. So thank you for joining us. I know it's your heads are probably spinning with 2 weeks left to get everything all done and out of this school year, and then preparing for next school year, even though we're not sure what that will look like yet. So, I mean, yeah, again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me, Dave Gomes. It's david.gomes@publicboard.ca or paul.lonke at publicboard.ca. We'd be more than willing to help you out with whatever you want in terms of setting up a course. And if you want a sandbox environment or a sandbox course that you can play around with and kind of break without worrying about students seeing anything, then please, again, email me, let me know, and I'll set you up a course to start working in. Okay, but I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'll stay around for a few minutes if there's any other people who want to ask any questions. If not, thank you, and I'll see you all virtually another day.
Thanks, everybody.